Hi, we're back finally, and what we're going to talk to you today about is Sasquatch. And Michael has had many experiences with Sasquatch ever since he was, how old were you?
Oh, well, as far as with Sasquatch, it's probably in my late 20s. Okay.
And I had experiences as a cowgirl, not necessarily on a more personal level with Sasquatch, not until I met Michael. And then it was just amazing how Sasquatch came to me and started to communicate. So I'll be talking a little bit about that later, but what we're going to do is start off today's video with Michael talking about how he got started in Sasquatch and all his younger days of before he met me.
Oh
and
my
what he
gosh.
experienced.
Yeah, right. Before I met you. Okay. So anyways, it kind of started out when I was 14 or 15 years old. Again, as I mentioned in the last video, that I started reading books on at that time I call it Bigfoot, of course, back a while ago. And eventually I had a friend in Milwaukee that I had been hanging with probably most of my school years there. And so he was also interested in Bigfoot. So we decided on our graduation trip, high school graduation trip, we'd go to Seattle and then explore out from Seattle and look for Bigfoot.
That's kind of a cool way to celebrate your graduation.
Yeah, it would have been a cool way, but unfortunately, as I said before, he died. He perished in a car accident, and that was very sad, of course. So anyway, so that kind of quelled that whole thing until my 20s, early 20s.
You like not want to get involved with Sasquatch for a while, or?
Yeah, that just kind of took a little bit of wind out of the sail, and so I decided again, I read a few more books, got kind of excited again. And so I went northern Wisconsin, living in Milwaukee. Northern Wisconsin had quite a bit of Sasquatch activity and Dogman activity. So I went up there and did a little exploring myself. Can't really say I saw a Sasquatch, didn't even see a footprint, but I did hear and feel presence of a Sasquatch or something like a Sasquatch. So I was
kind of. Did you hear the silence of it?
No, I didn't hear any sounds. This was, still with the regular birds and the chirps and the squirrels, etc. But anyways, so that still got me excited. I was going to do something in the future. I knew it eventually, and eventually I did. So then fast forward to the 90s. In the 90s, I happened across a video and I saw a guy named Kiwani Lapsaritis, and I thought, wow, this guy's really interesting. I kind of liked the way he was going with all his research on Sasquatch. So I ended up, luckily, I contacted him, and he just happened to be living in the Tucson area where I lived. And so we hooked up, and we became friends, and I kind of considered him a mentor in my study of Sasquatch. And then as time went on, we did some what I call mini expeditions. And what we did is we went up into the Montana, we went into Idaho, we went into eastern part of Washington State. And I'll briefly tell you a little bit about some of those adventures. One of the adventures was we went to what I call the largest vortex, or Kiwani called the largest vortex, maybe in North America.
Is this where he did the dowsing rods?
Yeah, he doused for the largest vortex. And what was kind of interesting is when we went there, he went ahead and did a map douse, and he went ahead and he found on the map where this location should be. So we went there, we drove there, it was quite a ways into the mountains, and we were looking for a place called, what was it, Elk Meadow, and right around Elk Meadow anyways. And so anyways, we couldn't find it at first. So the most amazing thing, we went back to the hotel, I had to leave the room, and he went ahead and did another dowsing, kind of a real, I don't want to say scientific, but it had to be without any distraction. And so he got the coordinates again, And he told me, get in the car. And he said, set your odometer to 0. And as soon as we get to, I don't remember the exact number, maybe it was 20.2.
That's cool.
And we drove down the road and we went to 20.2 exactly down this road we were on. And he said, turn to the left. And there it was. There was this beautiful meadow. And so that's where we were. We're going to go to this meadow, and then we were going to explore for Sasquatch and whatever else we could find there and hang out near the vortex. So that's what we did. So one of the experiences we had there at the vortex, which I think is absolutely was incredible, was, let me back up a minute. The days before we were there, and during the first day, it was like snowing and raining. It was terrible. It was about 8,000 feet up. So even it was June, I think, and it was, the weather was miserable. It probably couldn't have been much worse. Maybe the temperature could have been lower, but it was pretty dang cold and miserable and windy. I always remember it was real windy. So anyways, we were hanging out there, and we took our little lawn chairs right by the vortex, inside the vortex, but not directly in the middle of it, but it was a large vortex. So we put there, and Kiwani put some crystals underneath our chairs. Pretty cool. But anyways, it was still blowing and windy and crazy. And I said, well, Kiwani, you wrote in one of your books, one of his first books, that the Sasquatch had abilities to modify the weather, at least micro weather in a small area. Because he had talked about, he had went to a wedding and he asked them to make the wedding nice for the people he was going with, and it was raining and miserable, and once he got up to a place, it all cleared up. So he felt pretty comfortable in saying that they can modify weather, which I believe they can. Anyways, the bottom line was, we're there, and I mentioned to him about this weather modification, and he said, yeah, you're right, I guess I forgot all about that. So he kind of walked a little bit away from where we were sitting, and kind of looked like he was meditating or something, on to, probably trying to communicate with him, which he can communicate with him. And so no sooner to get back, and this is so crazy, I'm telling you, the sky opened up and a big column of sunshine came down, and we were wearing these heavy jackets. We had to take off our jackets. We sat there in the sun, but here was a stranger thing. Everything around us was still swirling and whirling, like we're in the middle of a hurricane. And the hurricane in the middle was clear, no wind. It was beautiful. It was incredible.
So did Kiwani contact one Sasquatch, more than one, to have that happen?
Well, Kiwani usually deals with families, so it was a family, I believe, and I don't really remember if he had a name for the family or just generally he said that they knew we were here. We were in that location. So I think they were on the side or whatever, because we also brought peanut butter and some other things for them to put as a gift to them. And I think it was a day or two later, we went out and actually placed that peanut butter, a jar of big Skippy peanut butter, I guess it was. But anyways, yeah, so that was really incredible. I mean, you had to be there to see it. And when you could still see the clouds swirling around the edge of the vortex, and we were in this beautiful sunny weather, I don't even know what to tell you. It's like crazy stuff. So anyways, that was a great experience. Then another one of our expeditions, the eastern part of Washington, we contacted, he had a friend that was a sheriff, and this sheriff was very much into Sasquatch, and we had him over to our campfire. We were camping there up in the some state forest. I don't remember it, but it was pretty well back in the middle of nowheres. And so he came and joined us one night, and we talked. And after he had a few beers and the fire was going well, he was talking a lot about the little communities around this area. And what he did say was incredible, and again, Kiwani verified this, was that a lot of these communities seeing or having experience with Sasquatch was pretty ordinary. It wasn't like...
Also, it was human communities.
These were human communities, okay. Yes, human communities,
right.
Little towns that are up there in the eastern part of Washington. And they said that they would see them, Sasquatch love apples, they love produce of different sorts, they love berries. So a lot of times they'd find them in their gardens taking things, carrots and things like that. And also a lot of times they saw them in their apple trees, taking their apples. And, Washington, obviously, that Washington is noted for their apples, and apparently they love them.
Mhm.
So they would be climbing in the trees and shaking the trees and getting the apples out of the trees and taking them. But it was very commonplace. It even was so common that they actually named some of the Sasquatches. Like there goes John, or there goes Henry, or there goes Charlie. So that was pretty cool. And then after he had two more beers, or maybe it was three, I don't remember quite, he told me, and I don't think he really wanted to, because this was a little bit, I don't want to say secret, but it was something he probably shouldn't have said or talked about. I don't know if this is true, but this is just coming out of his mouth, was that there was these rumors, and he felt they were pretty unrumors, they were truths, that there was a couple of hybrid Native Americans that were twins, and they were older. There were two women, and they were hybrids. Apparently, there was some Sasquatch encounters years before, many years before, with apparently the mother and the Sasquatch, and there was two hybrids produced. Don't know if it's true. He admitted he never saw them. They were put away. They were
Put away?
Well, not put away. They were alive, but they were put in a part of the reservation that was kind of isolated away from everybody else, so there would be no issues. But that was all he had to say about it. Yeah, I won't ever forget that conversation. If it is true, I'm not certain. He wasn't certain it was 100% true, but he felt his sources were pretty good. So anyway, so that was that. Let me see what else.
Well, and then you had an experience where you were touched.
Oh yes, and in another expedition, mini expedition is what I was trying to say. We were camping in a different location this time, and so we're in our tents, and it was a big tent. So Kiwani's on the other side of the tent, and I'm on the other side, and so we're kind of facing each other. And so a couple things happened. I think it was like the second night we were there. Nothing really happened the first night. So the second night we were there, and first of all, let me tell you, it wasn't a primitive camp. It was a regular campground, and I don't believe that when we were there was anybody there at all. It wasn't one of these campgrounds where you have, it's all established with a lot of campers. This was occasionally people would come and camp. So anyways, we're in there the second night, and we're laying there, and we're both still awake. And suddenly it goes completely silent, and it was the most incredible experience.
Because it's a different kind of silence, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a kind of, it's eerie, but it's almost godlike, meaning it's so different. You feel like you're
there's a higher intelligence involved.
Right, there's something else going on here. Yeah. It's just, there was no crickets, there's no noise, there's nothing. Just, I don't know, weird silence. You can, as I say, hear yourself think or whatever, but it was strange. And we both noticed it right away. And we both said, do you hear the lack of sound? I guess that's the way we put it. And it lasted for about 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden there was this hollering and hooting and carrying on all around us, and a lot of noise, a lot of, a beating of the feet around us. And I guess I was pretty much shocked, but I'm not going to say that Kiwani was. I think he was expecting something after the silence. And so what it was is what he said, and I believed it because I never heard anything like this. It was Sasquatch all around the camp, and they were just kind of circling us, letting us know. He never said it was a family. He just said it was more than one. He thought it was three, and they were just moving around, hollering, hooting. That lasted for 2 or 3 minutes, and then they were gone. And then everything came back to normal. The crickets were back, everything was back, and that was it. And that was amazing. That was amazing. I love the Sasquatch there, but I love the silence too, because it was very unusual. Mm-hmm. So then now it was either the next night or the night after, I can't remember exactly, but then I had my own personal close encounter. So we're laying in our tent, but this time we're both sleeping, and I wake up, And I know I'm awake because I'm hearing Kiwani across from me and not watching him, but he's across from me and he's snoring like a freight train. Okay. And so anyways, all of a sudden something goes through the tent. I mean, it literally comes to the tent, and it was a big, and I don't want to say I was paralyzed, but I guess maybe in slight fear I was paralyzed. Yeah. And this very large hairy hand is on my shoulder. And it was just laying there, quietly laying on my shoulder. And it wasn't that I was fearful. It was just gently laying there, I guess, because it was a big hand. It would have been quite heavy if he wanted to push down on my shoulder, okay? But he didn't, or she didn't. I don't know if it's a he or she. There was nothing else said.
A sense of male or female?
I guess initially I would say it was a male. I don't know, maybe because it was such a huge...
I'm sensing it was a male.
It was such a huge hand. It covered my whole shoulder, and I could see it was hairy, and it was dark. Now, it wasn't very light. Let me put it this way. It wasn't obviously light.
So you felt the pressure like on your shoulder.
Right.
Like, did he squeeze your shoulder, or did he just
it was
put his hand?
It was just laying on
So it's very gentle.
It was gentle.
Yeah.
And so, and it was on my left shoulder because I was laying on my right, and I was looking towards Kiwani. So, and I knew it wasn't him. I don't know, he could be a trickster, so maybe he could run around the tent and do it, but it wasn't, because he was there, he was snoring, and that was there, his body was there. So I know that. So anyways, that was incredible. It seemed like 5 minutes. It may not have been that long. It may only have been a couple, and it was released. It was gone, and there was no damage to the tent. So I assumed it went right through the tent wall, because it was a type of tent.
So like a portal.
Well, it was like they had the ability to go through the tent. I don't know how they did it, but the deal was, just so you know, the tent had a bottom on it, so it was all attached. So there was no way a person could sneak under. It had to go through the tent.
And nobody else was around the campsite.
No, there was nobody even in the rest of the campsite. There was nobody there that particular night. I know that for sure. So anyways, that was my close encounter. The next day we were going to breakfast. We're driving down to the nearest little town. And I mentioned it to Kiwani, and he just smiled, and he knew it already, because I've always asked that I wanted to have a close encounter with the Sasquatch. I've seen the prints. When we were over by the vortex, I saw footprints, and I felt the presence just like Kiwani did of the Sasquatch. I wanted to have a closer encounter, and so I did. So it was pretty incredible. Anyways, let's see. Is there anything else on that earlier time? No, I think that was it. Rainbow, how about you?
Well, Michael and I got together around 2013, and what happened was it Christmas of 2013? I went to Oregon to hang with Michael and his family for Christmas. And it was around that time that a Sasquatch named Loki, and he spelled his name for me, Loekey, saw me, and we were over by a rainforest over by Cannon Beach. Is it Cannon Beach?
Cannon Beach, sure.
Cannon Beach.
Yeah.
So it was the rainforest that you go to go up on this high bluff where you can go watch the whales. And so he was in that vicinity, and he had seen me, and I guess he thought, okay, well, that might be a person I'll connect to and I'll communicate with. So I knew about Sasquatch before I met Michael. But for me, as a medicine woman, I was dealing more with I guess the interdimensional aspect of life and spirits and going into other realities and all this weird stuff that didn't have a lot to do with cryptids. Not that they weren't around, because I definitely heard them, and I think I had probably come closer to experiences with Dogman than I did Sasquatch.
Right. Yeah, right, you did.
But because there were a few times I went and did vision quests, and I do know that I did have something visit me on my first one, and I believe my second vision quest I had actually cryptids watching me to make sure I was safe. But I didn't have like the communication interaction with them. So we come back, and it was later, probably beginning of summer, because it was quite a few months into
Right.
before, because we had actually talked with Kiwani, and then we were kind of going up and doing our own little adventures into Sandia Mountains, and looking and trying to see if we could find and connect with Sasquatch. We would take apples and chocolates, even there in New Mexico. So one day, Michael was off doing his work. This is when he was traveling quite a bit. It was one morning, I was looking up something on Sasquatch, and I'd seen some images, and I went, wow. And I just got this real intense feeling in my chest. And I went, that would be a beautiful being to actually meet and see and communicate with. And so I had to get ready for the day. It was in the morning, and I'm in the shower, and the water's going, and something really interesting happened. I heard a lot of loud bangs, and almost like booms. No, and I thought, I turned the water off, and I thought, well, somebody must be closing their doors. I thought maybe some big truck outside. And then I turned the water off, and I'd hear nothing. And I had little, music going on in the background. So I turned the water back on again. Big booms. Like there's actually like something exploding around me and hitting the walls of the house. And I'm thinking, what the heck is that? So I turned the water off again, because I thought maybe something happened. Maybe there was a car crash outside, because your mind goes into the rational mode of, well, what could be A, B, C, D, what could it be? So I didn't hear anything. So I turned the water back on, and as loud as day, a male voice says, "Hello, I'm Loki." And I thought it was the music. So I turned the water off, and I thought, that's a weird, is that rap? Is that someone saying hello? I'm Loki. And then he spelled his name out. And and I was listening to metaphysical music, so like new age music. So it was like it wasn't even any vocals. It was just pure instrumental. So I turned the water back on, and it seemed like the water was the conduit. Yeah. Now he was communicating with me. And so and he told me that he was an Argonian Sasquatch, and he had explained to me that he's a portal jumper, and that he was interested. He saw me at the rainforest in Oregon, and listen, I'm telling you folks, this is the last thing on my mind. I would never guess this. I mean, we all have good imaginations, but this is not something I would be imagining. It was, especially not being naked in the shower. And as he's talking to me, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking, oh my God, can he see me? I am naked in the shower. And I was very uncomfortable with that fact. And I'm like going, oh God. I said, well, it's nice to meet you. And so I got done showering ahead of time. I didn't finish. And I got out, and I actually put a towel around me because I was that freaked out. And then I could tell that as soon as I turned the water off, and I could still hear him, but he slowly went. And he just wanted to make that contact with me and let me know. I didn't hear the booms anymore. I didn't hear anything, and it was just the music in the background. And I remember when I talked to Michael that night, I said, I think a Sasquatch contacted me, Loki. So he's pretty excited about it. And as a matter of fact, before I go on, I drew Loki so everybody could see him. And so I'm going to try to do this as best as I can. Is that good? You got to help me out, Michael.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see.
Right there.
Yeah, there you go. So that's Loki. He's an Argonian portal jumper, Sasquatch. And so he started communicating with me, and that's what he looks like. So then after that, it was download. He gave me information about portals, which will be another video, because it's his information, it's not mine. So whenever some entity or being gives me information and it's not mine, I just push it aside because it's not something that I feel it's not kind of like my information. It's theirs. So if I write it down, that's great. If I don't write it down, then I forget about it, and it's just the way it is. And so I've been that way ever since I was a teenager. When something would contact me, but he started giving me information and telling me all kinds of stuff about portals, the problems with the artificial portals, who's coming through, and what's happening, and he would download on my brain at 2 a.m. And he didn't understand that, and I had to explain this to him, that I needed him to tell me stuff during waking hours, because if he would download information to me, and it would be really strange because I would wake up and it would be like something was like a typewriter or something was actually downloading all this information, and I would have it in my brain, and then I would go and I go write it all down. And what was really interesting about that is I would go back to bed and then I wouldn't remember anything, and then I would have to look at my notes to see what I wrote down. But it was exhausting. You can't function that way. I mean, I get to bed by 3. It take me half an hour to go back to sleep, and then I'd have to get up in about 3 or 4 hours. So
yeah, and the interesting, I guess some of the interesting thing is I was pretty oblivious to this. I was sleeping there, but I didn't remember any of this happening. You know, you didn't wake, she didn't,
no,
Rainbow didn't wake me up,
No.
but at the same time, I'm sure there was noise and activity there with her writing. I didn't know anything until the next morning, and then she told me what happened.
Right, and then I'd show him what I'd written down,
Right,
and he'd be going, "Wow," you know. But when that would happen, it would really affect my sleeping pattern. What happened next is that we went to, he was doing all this downloading stuff with me, and I finally had to tell Loki that, he had to be a little easy on me and not get upset if I didn't wake up and, I didn't retain what he had given me. And we were starting to get on a pretty good friendship. He was a pretty good, he was someone who I started to feel very comfortable with. Michael and I don't know, the following year went to Oregon again.
Was it Christmas?
I don't think it was Christmas. We went to go look at houses.
Okay.
And so in his middle daughter's house at one evening while we were there, Loki came into the house, and I was sleeping on my side. And I drink a ton of water, as Michael found out, a ton of water. I'm like
fish.
Yeah, I'm a fish out of water, even though I don't like the ocean. So I had a whole bunch of water bottles, and him coming in, and he came I think they create their own, well, I know they do. That's what he told me. They create their own portals so they can come through walls. So he was standing in the doorway, and the water bottles started contracting and popping, all of them at the same time. And my heart was jumping, and I was getting very nervous because I could see him, and he's about 8 feet tall, and he's very muscular in build, and as you can see, Loki doesn't have much of a neck. So that's the one thing I noticed about him. He just didn't have much of a neck. But he did have something that he had on, like something leather, a leather strap, some kind of thing on him. I never asked him about that, but I should have. But anyways, that night I had a phenomenal conversation with Loki. He somehow made me feel comfortable. And I don't know if he took me wherever he's at, and we had the discussion, but we probably talked for 2 or 3 hours. And I woke up that morning and I was smiling, and I told Michael immediately that Loki had come, and he'd come into the room, and then I explained to him, please don't communicate with me anymore while I'm in the shower, when I'm naked, because humans just aren't like, you know, they don't care. They could care less. They don't wear clothes, but I told them that we're a little different. And so he said, fine. So after with that long conversation, I even got more downloads from Loki. And that was probably my first experience with a Sasquatch person. And he is a person. And I'm going to make that really clear to everybody. This is somebody that I respect, someone who cares deeply about humans. They do care about humans. They have an intelligence beyond us. And what they do for us, we don't even know what they do for us. Many times these beings are going around and they are balancing out a lot of the crap that humans do, especially in the forests. And they do try to protect people in the forest. They're not the bad guys in the forest like everybody believes. I'm not saying there's not renegades. I'm not saying that there's
rogues.
There's rogues, but that's even with people. I mean, to be honest, I'm more afraid of people in the forest than I am dealing with something else. The only thing that scares me more than people are actual portals, and the portals are what Loki had explained to me. So he made it really clear about kind of what his people do, and there's different groups of Sasquatch. He said that his group are portal jumpers, so they can go to any place on the planet, and how they do that is through the trees. If there's trees around, they can just create portals. There's other Sasquatch that are born here, born on this planet. He said they're different, that they're not portal jumpers and they can't do what his group does. So there's different types of Sasquatch out there. And so he explained that to me. And then before we go into Utah about the Creature X,
Okay.
we did have an experience with a dogman in the Sandia Mountains.
Right.
So you want to talk about that? Start it off.
Sure, I can start it off. Yeah. So there was an area we would go up to at the top of Mount Sandia Mountain, which is the largest mountain or peak, I guess, in the Sandia Mountains. And so we go up there, and there's a lot of trails up there. We go and we walk through, et cetera, et cetera. So this one day we went to this particular trail. I think we had been there before, correct?
Yes, it's on the other side of the tram.
Right. So if you've been up that area, there's a big tram, and it's on the other side of the mountain, on the other side of the tram. So anyways, so we were there, and Rainbow jumped out of the car, usually jumps before the car stops, and tries to jump out. So anyways, she jumped out, and I'm parking the car, I guess. And so she's walking across the road. She wasn't really paying attention.
I was walking on rocks.
Okay, she was walking on rocks. It was sort of across a little bit of a pathy road or something. So anyways, so I'm getting out of the car, and all of a sudden I look up, and there is a huge creature, which at first I didn't know what it was, but after, yes, it was a bear. Yes, we're certain of that one. So anyways, I hollered at Rainbow. I said, Rainbow,
watch out for the bear.
Watch out for the big bear. And it was a big mama bear. I don't know why I say that, but it looked like a big mama bear. It was heads back towards us, and then it kind of, I don't know if it turned around and looked.
She turned on her haunches and went running to the left.
Right.
Yeah.
She went running, and that was kind of it. That was a little exciting when we first got there.
Yeah, well, I was actually, what I think I scared her because I was on these rocks, and Michael was worried about me because I had just fallen down some steps and I broke my wrist. And so he didn't want me falling again because my wrist had I tilted my wrist up. Anyway, so I'm like, teeter-tottering on these rocks. And when he told me, when he yelled to get my attention, I turned and looked, and there she was turning on her haunches, and she just booked it. And so she's going left, and then this really tall hiker dude is going left. And I said, Michael, look at that weird hiker.
Yeah.
I said,
he was very tall, 7 or 8 feet, I bet you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I said, well, I said, he's got his backpack on really weird, because in your brain, again, like we say all the time, you rationalize it. So you go through all the A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever in your brain library, and you try to rationalize what you're looking at. So I said that he had a backpack on that was on really weird, and it must have been so heavy because he was hunched
Hunched
over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I said, and he's got a really weird outfit on because it was purple and gray and black. And then I got to looking, and I realized that was not a hiker.
Yeah.
So then Michael and I immediately got the feeling of stay back. Whatever this being was, he was saying, stay back.
Right.
So we
remember we walked up.
We walked across the road,
right.
and the trail goes down.
Right.
And I said, well, let's go a little further. And Michael said, no, Rainbow, no. I just feel we shouldn't go. And then all of a sudden, in our solar plexus, we both got that feeling of, and it wasn't like of doom or death. It was caution. And so this being was saying, stop.
Right.
I don't want you to come any further.
Right.
And so,
and we honor those
whenever
we get those feelings, and we've had them many times before, we honor those feelings.
Yes.
Because you have to honor those feelings.
Yeah, you do. You have to honor it.
Right.
So Michael let me have his camera. And so I just said, well, I'm going to take pictures. And so I took a long range picture. So I took 3. I did 1, 2, 3. Well, the second one is where we caught him. And this this photo here on the left.
So you can get a little closer.
Here, you want to do that for me?
Okay.
Okay, so this picture, I'm going to stand up. Okay. This picture on the left is from us standing up on a hill, and that's him right there. And this is just us him close up. So this is a dogman. And if you notice on this there, well, you can't see it here, but there's a blue line up here that will tell you.
It's on the middle one. You can't see it. I don't know if you can see that good here, but it was
right
is it there?
Here. Yeah, let me see. One. I can't even see it on my glasses. Let me look.
Well, that's where it was, anyways. That's where.
Yeah, the blue line. There's a blue line on this tree. It's not. They didn't show up on the photo, but anyways, his head was right up by the blue line.
Right.
And so we didn't know we had got that until we got in the car and we looked at the photos, and I said, oh my God, we caught something. And so it was the dog man, and he telepathed to me. His name's Tulak. And I don't know, I mean, that's such an oddball name. It was just amazing the names they give you when they give you the names.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's like, whoa, where did that come from?
Rainbow would also say this name, and it's like, well, that has to be almost real, because she couldn't possibly made up that name.
Well, it's
and then they usually spell it
in my
right.
It's not in my everyday reality. Right, I don't come up. Yeah, I'm not. I don't write plots or reality shows, and I don't come up with characters. So, anyways, so this particular dog man, he wanted us to come back, and he was going to show Michael and me where a portal was there on Sandia Mountain, and we just never made it back to be able to go to the portal. But when we did go back, we went back about 3 weeks after this photograph was taken,
right,
to go see a height of where this blue line was that the forest people had like I say, marked the trees.
They were marking the trees probably for cutting or whatever.
And it was 7 to 8 feet tall.
Yeah, it's definitely 7
to
8 feet tall.
Yeah, and so he definitely, we were amazed at how tall he was. And then we went to go look to see if maybe, because you have to debunk stuff like this. And I think that's really important for people to understand. I mean, if you capture a photo, you got to go back and you got to debunk it. That's just the way it is. And I don't care what anybody says. You have to debunk your own research. That's just my feeling on it. And so we went back. Obviously, Tulak wasn't there, so there wasn't like a tree standing there that looked like it could be something. There's nothing there.
There was nothing there. In fact, we actually took a couple photos of that area again, and that's where we, besides being there and looking at it close up, we also had a longer shot just to make absolutely sure we weren't seeing something from a distance. But anyways,
yeah, so he wasn't there, and so we're pretty sure, we knew already that, because it was very obvious with the feeling that we got in our solar plexus.
Yeah, plus we saw him moving across, kind of.
Yeah, I saw him. Yeah.
And one of the things is I saw the end of this of him moving across. Rainbow saw pretty much the whole
thing.
The whole screen shot of it.
Walk down the trail. Yeah.
And the thing about it is I had previously talked to some people when I was doing some research on the mountain, was that they had encounters, or they saw a dogman running along, and they actually saw the tracks, and it was like 7 or 8, sometimes it's 5 to 7 feet strides, plus they have seen, a couple of people did actually see them, and they glide. They almost seemed to glide through.
And that's what this guy was doing.
This one seemed to glide also.
Yeah, he was wanting, and something too that I didn't think about, and that was amazing for both of us, was that they do hang with bears.
Yeah.
I mean, they hang with animals. Dogman, and I don't think Sasquatch is always, I think sometimes if they see a herd of elk or deer, they're not always going after them to eat them, or to I don't know, to prove that they're the predatory kings of the forest. They all get along because everything is based on outside of man. So Dogman gets along with bears. Bears also get along with Sasquatch. They all get along together. It doesn't mean, there's that every so often there is a confrontation, but humans, we all get along for the most part. We try. Not all the time, but we get along. So the point is that most people think that Sasquatch or Dogman has nothing to do with other animals in the forest outside of eating them, and that is just not true.
Yeah, and I think one of the other thing is that they actually use each other to help each other.
Sure.
And a lot of times Sasquatch, and this is something came from Kiwani, they will use birds as scouts. Like the bird will be up there like a little drone up there and communicate with the Sasquatch that there is danger coming. Maybe there's a man coming, maybe there's a hunter coming.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that they're aware of that. So they use the birds to do that. So anyways, yeah. What else?
Creature X in Utah. Now we're in Utah. We're traveling all around Oregon, New Mexico, Utah.
Yeah, Creature X.
I think that's important to talk about.
Yeah. So there is a creature out in the woods that I like to call Creature X. I think it's something completely different. And there was some weird things that have happened. David Pilates talks about a creature out there. He I don't think he's really sure of what it always is.
Are you sure he says a creature? I don't think he's ever.
I don't know.
David's never said what he thinks it is.
Okay.
He just.
Well, no, I'm not saying I'm not saying he's calling it Creature X or anything. I'm calling it a Creature X.
Yeah, Michael's calling it a Creature X.
Because we don't really know what it is, and we think for the most part that is something. I think it's a super predator, and I think it's very dangerous. And I think didn't Sasquatch make a comment of that?
Loki, I asked Loki about Creature X, and Loki said that it's very unfortunate. That Creature X is part Sasquatch and is part alien. And he said that he knows of 3 of them that were cloned, and that he said that they were let out into the forest, and that they got away, and that they are even dangerous for Sasquatch. They're dangerous for Dogman. They're dangerous for you name it. They're dangerous because they're basically and it's not an Arnold Schwarzenegger type of movie, that kind of stuff where it's all fiction. It's this things are created that we don't know about, and they're released out into the world, and then people are left dealing with whatever it is that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes cryptids as well. So this isn't some, and everybody's going to be going, oh, okay, Rainbow, give me your proof. Well, my proof is what Loki tells me, and I believe Loki. And so, I mean, I don't have the proof, but what I do know is that when Michael and I go out into the forest and we get a different sense of something that isn't quite right, that I know that I'm spot on. And that happened in one area that we were in Utah. We were going to the falls in Utah. That, no, cave, it was cave. That cave you're talking to me about.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's a
yeah.
back way you can
Yeah.
go into the cave.
Yeah.
And we were going on a road that was really narrow and barely two cars could pass. And all of a sudden, we were going around a curve, and I got the most horrible feeling I've ever had in my life. And I mean, we're in a car, there's people, and I was freaked out for everybody who was driving around. I was even freaked out for people who were stopped, who were just, talking, hanging around. I said, Michael, we've just got to get out of here. We have got to get out of here. And that's the first time I've ever experienced Creature X. And I think it was from that experience that I'd actually asked Loki. I said, I felt something horrible in the forest. I don't know what this thing was, but all I know is that I wanted to get out of there. And he said, yeah, you're lucky you did. He said, because those things are looking at different people to stalk. And that's what they do. And you know what? When anybody goes out into the forest, be very prepared, be very careful. I'm not trying to scare anybody because that's not what Michael and I are doing, because we still go out into the forest. We're not saying don't go out to the forest, because we go ourselves. We go hiking and we do all kinds of stuff with our research, but we're prepared as best as we can.
Right.
So if your gut tells you to turn around, you turn around. That's just what you do. And that's what we've done.
Right. And there's been a few times we disagreed, but we do respect each other's feelings. So typically we would go a different direction or go back to where we came from and move on to a different location.
Yeah.
Which I think is prudent at the time.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think it comes down to, do you want to risk being wrong?
Yeah.
And nobody wants, I mean, the people who risk being wrong are missing, or they're gone.
Right.
So if you go against your gut, that can happen sometimes. So anyways, that was very interesting, having that experience in Utah. And the next Sasquatch that I got in contact with here in Oregon is a female called Loki, Warja. And Warja contacted me in the state park, right. MacGyver. What is it, MacGyver?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a normal walk that we would take. We go there a lot. And she contacted me there, and I was very intrigued by her name, Warja. I've never heard that name before. And anyways, she is a Sasquatch that is just a family group that's in the Cascade Mountains. She's told me different locations where I can find her. What she told me is that they have a summer camp and a winter camp. And she said that she always tells us where we can find her in the summer. And of course, obviously in the winter, we wouldn't. They're not in the snowy areas either in the winter, but they go further back into the mountains and into the Cascades during the winter. So one thing that she does is when they come back out in the summer for the berries and obviously for apples and stuff like that. And with Warja, what we did is we started bringing apples and dark chocolate.
Right.
Oh, and she loves dark chocolate. She just loves it. And a really amazing thing happened. We put the dark chocolate in a gallon baggie, and we did that, in case it rained or so other animals like
the other creatures
or
less likely
squirrels.
to smell the chocolate or the apples because they like it too.
I opened up the bag and I closed it, and then I opened it again, and then I closed to show her how to get to the chocolate.
Right.
And so I folded it and we stuck it in an area, and she had told me where to go. She said that on this trail, there's going to be a hole in a trunk. And so I was looking for a tree with a hole in the trunk. And lo and behold, when we walked around this curve, I actually saw the bottom half,
it was a stump,
a stump with a hole in it.
Right.
And she was right. You know, that's where we started putting the all the snacks,
apples,
the apples and the snacks.
And I think we put a couple of other things, some kind of a food
granola
bar,
bars.
Some granola bars.
Yeah.
They weren't that keen on.
No, they didn't like the granola bars as much. But we dropped all that off. We went for a walk. We walked about, I would say, 20 minutes. And Michael says, Rainbow, I have a feeling that she was there. We need to go back.
Right.
So we actually did the full walk around because Michael felt we needed to give her time. So we walked all the way around and we went back. We went to the plastic container. It was folded up neatly inside the trunk and everything was gone.
Well, also, Rainbow, remember one time this happened several times. We didn't do it once, but wasn't it one time they actually had folded something over and closed it back up
That's
again?
what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
The gallon baggie was folded and neatly put into the trunk.
Right, and closed.
And I pulled it out, and to me, that was huge for me because that told me that she number one, she watched us. She saw what I had done. And she put it back. And that takes, so for somebody who thinks it's an ape or whatever, which drives me nuts, no, these are really intelligent beings. And she was really respectful. So that to me was better than footprints. And then when they do the cast of the footprints, I could care less about those. I know there's a lot of people who are really big on that. I'm just not big on that. For me, I need different types of proof. And this was a proof that was very private to Michael and me.
Right.
So then Michael said, well, hey, Rainbow, do you know what she looks like? And I said, well, yeah, I can try to draw her. And so this is the image of Warja.
This one's, okay, there we go. That's pretty good.
And that's kind of how I see her. You know, she's that's just kind of what she looks like to me. So.
Yeah, she's got those kind of fancy eyes. Looks like she's got eye makeup on,
actually. I know it does. So anyways, so we started going and leaving her dark chocolate and apples. And we realized that maybe she could leave something for us, or I think we had meditated and said, hey, you know, if ever you want to leave something for us, it would be great. We never expected her to. I was thinking maybe of something more of the lines of maybe little animals, or maybe a marble, or a feather, because a lot of people get feathers. I was thinking of something like that. So whenever we would go to the trunk, we'd look around and we didn't see anything. So Michael walks away from where the trunk is, and he says, well, maybe it's up in a tree.
Yeah, because they're 7-8 foot tall, and you got the arms could probably add another 4 foot onto that. So you're talking about 12, maybe even 13 feet. They could put something up high.
Yeah.
And so it was just a gut feeling. So I did. I looked up.
Michael looks up and he goes, Rainbow, look up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, being my normal self. And he goes, no, Rainbow, look up. And I look up and I'm like, oh my God. And there was this. And this was a gift from Warja. This is a wreath that she made for us. And she also gave us something else in a plastic baggie.
Yeah.
We weren't sure what it was.
Yeah, we weren't too sure what it was.
I mean, I feel kind of bad. We didn't keep that. I mean, maybe it was food or roots or something.
Yeah, it was just unusual. It was in the bag.
We should have kept it.
I think was the bag closed? I don't remember.
The bag was closed.
Yeah,
I don't even know where she got the bag.
Yeah.
But she gave us something else. She gave us 2 presents, and this was one of them. And so this is very special and very sacred to Michael and I.
Right.
I couldn't believe it that she did that. And
yeah, and I really feel, we always talk about, could humans do this, that, and the other. The thing about the chocolate, let's start with the chocolate and the apples. The chocolate and apples, we are really, really careful to make sure that nobody is even around
In the
us
area,
in the
right.
area. We'll wait and we'll, because occasionally down the path or down the trail, somebody would come. But this is, I don't want to say it's super isolated, but you can wait and you can observe people around you. So they would have to really be hiding and knowing we're going to do something. And there was nobody
Somebody'd
around.
have to be stalking us.
Base, yeah, somebody have to be stalking us.
They'd have to be watching us,
Right.
what we're doing, because
Right,
we're always looking around, and
Yeah.
so, and usually when we go during the weekday when there's a
Right.
lot less people.
Yeah, exactly.
So whenever we go to our areas that we like to go to, so I think the one thing that is amazing for us is when we do get this interaction with Sasquatch. That's
Right.
pretty amazing.
And this other gift here, the wreath, that the thing about that was it was really up high. It wasn't easy for me to get down. Okay, what I had to do is get another long stick, because I'm about 5'7", so I had to get a long stick to get it. It wasn't easy getting off of the branch that it was put on, but it was way up there.
Yeah.
So it was a bit strange, and I felt pretty comfortable. This is what it was. It was the real thing.
Oh,
so.
yeah. I mean, now it's all dried out right now, but when this was first made, it was all green.
Yeah, it was green. It was all green. It was
so
just fresh,
I mean, you have to have
fresh.
strength to be able to
bend
that.
those.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And then next, what we want to talk about is an area that we go to here called Sasquatch Highway.
Right.
And we had an experience of when this was probably when we first found this area that we felt confident. You could sense that Sasquatch was there. When we realized that we were being followed.
Right.
And it was really interesting because it was in the middle of the week. It was during early part of fall. Nobody was around, nobody. And Michael and I'd be walking, and I heard footsteps, and I said, Michael, stop. So we stopped, and then we'd stop, and then it was bipedal because it would do 2 steps and then stop. And then we started walking again, and then Michael had us stop, and then it would do 2 more steps and stop. And so whatever it was following us was definitely walking on 2 feet, and it would just go a little further beyond what we were doing. And we definitely sensed that he was there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, chances are, I mean, obviously a human could have been involved, but we kind of looked, we were pretty careful, and it seemed like it was very close for a person to be there.
Well, it was very close by. I
right,
mean,
it was very
like,
close. It was almost like they were invisible.
Away.
It was almost like they were
invisible.
They were in dimensional walking, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
But so pretty confident that was something there. It was making noise, it was walking, and it was probably listening to what we're saying or whatever. And then that lasted for quite a while, right?
Yeah, actually the whole trip going one way, and then we felt uncomfortable. We thought, well, we probably should walk back, because we weren't too sure, because it also, what was eerie about this area that we go walking is there's no squirrels.
Yeah, it's quite quiet. Yeah,
it's very quiet.
Yes,
there's no squirrels. There's hardly any birds.
Yeah.
If you do see birds, they're either by this river area or they're way up in these trees, but there's nothing down below. And it's that part is really interesting to me, as to why there wouldn't be any animals in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, you see some squirrels,
especially being by the water, because there was fish.
Yeah.
There's a lot of should be a lot of activity. There wasn't. One of the things, let me just bring up for now, is the fact that we talk about water. Let's just talk about water. This river area that we go along is, the river parallels, for the most part, a lot of this area that's called Sasquatch Highway. It's a highway that runs from Estacada, Oregon, to Detroit Lake. I mean, when I say to Detroit Lake, it doesn't quite get there, but it's the road that goes up to where the road is. You take a right to get to Detroit Lake. So any of you that have been in Oregon, you'll know. But this highway is noted for crossing sightings, where they see a Sasquatch come across the road. And I think the key thing is it's right parallel to that river, because Sasquatch like lakes, and they like creeks, and they like rivers, and you will get a lot of sightings around those type of areas. So keep that in mind. Okay, what do we got?
And so last but not least is Michael's Sasquatch hair.
Okay, so this right here, this is pretty incredible.
Is that given to you by Kiwani?
Yes, was sent to me from Kiwani, and I'll hold it up. There's really, you're not going to be able to tell anything by looking at it, but this is pretty incredible. This was, I don't know if Kiwani found this or somebody gave this to him, but it's some pretty incredible, very coarse hair, but not like horsehair. A lot of people say it's horsehair, and I think some of this, I don't know if this, maybe pieces were taken off and sent to a lab, and I think it was inconclusive. They said it probably wasn't anything they knew, but they weren't sure what it was. So I'm not saying it's Sasquatch, absolutely, but there's suspicions it was, because it was an area that there was a lot of sightings, and I think this was found that it was caught on a branch or something like that, or on a tree. It's pretty incredible. It feels really cool.
Yeah.
It really has a nice feel to it, but it doesn't feel like human hair or anything else.
It actually, it's almost softer than my hair.
Yeah, it's really soft.
Yes,
It's
if you
really
feel my
strange.
hair, so it's not coarse like you would think. So it really has a cool feel, but when you're feeling it, you kind of get the sense that you're not touching something that's like from a person.
Right.
Because this has an energy to it.
Yeah.
So
anyway, so that was something that
Yeah.
had sent to me years ago, actually. Probably when we were, out doing our little mini expeditions. So, okay, so
yeah, so we're that's kind of.
Well, I had one more. We're going to talk about.
Which one?
Well, I have one more to talk about in Oregon.
Sure.
Okay, so Rainbow and I were at a local county fair, and we met this gentleman. I'm not going to give names. I met this gentleman, and we kind of befriended him, and he, over a period of time, told us a series of stories, but I'll tell you the one that really impressed me the most. Pretty incredible, actually, of stories. So this gentleman was a hunter, and he was out bow hunting, okay, with two other people. And so they split up. They were, and this is only about 20 miles, believe it or not, from Eugene, Oregon. Okay, about 20 miles.
Mm-hmm.
It was close. Okay.
He actually goes to the area where it was at.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and actually, eventually he took us down to close to where this area was, where it was, and he just wanted to show us the area. But anyway, so he was bow hunting, and they went up the mountain together, or in this area where they bow hunting, and they split up. So he went his way, they went their way, etc. But they were going to stay close to each other in shouting distance, I guess, as he put it. So he got there, and lo and behold, there was a deer. And so, bow hunting is different than guns. So you got to get really close to it. So he got really close to it. And of course, he shot the deer, and he's, a pretty avid hunter. So I guess he's really good at bow and
he's very good at,
Yeah. So anyways, he kills the deer, right? Okay. So it's a large deer, he said, and it had fallen, obviously on the ground. It may have been in kind of a ravine or something, but
he said he had to trek uphill.
Right. So anyways, he said, well, he's not going to be able to do it. So he's going to have to go back and get his buddies, or at least notify his buddies that they need to come and help him carry the deer out. Because I guess he wasn't going to field dress it, kill it, cut it up there, etc. But whatever, it was a large deer. So anyways, he walks back down a little ways, and he sees, or walks up, I can't remember, it may have been walking up. Walked up. And so he gets in contact with his buddies, and they're going to come, and he turns around, starts walking back to it, and he sees, to his, I don't know if it was shock, I guess, he sees this large Sasquatch standing
very close to him.
Yeah, it was right. When he turned around, he only had to step a few things, and he wasn't expecting anything, and he looks up, and here's the Sasquatch, and he has his deer in his arms, basically, and he's gonna take it, and it almost seems like I guess his first reaction was, you're not going to get my deer that I shot. And, because bow hunting is pretty hard to get a deer. So for him, it was like kind of a thing. Of course, he's still got this, he's looking at it and he's wondering what the heck, and all of a sudden the Sasquatch opens his mouth and lets out this huge, I don't even know, he couldn't even describe this huge,
Growl. It was like a growl.
A huge, powerful growl
Yeah.
that he said shook his whole body. And I think he almost said it brought him to his knees.
He said it brought him to his knees.
Right.
And he felt it through his whole being. He said that it shook his whole body. He said the vibration of the yell,
right,
literally shook his whole body and knocked him to the ground.
Right.
And he said it was such an intense feeling of having that frequency, or that I guess it was a frequency, that energy directed right at you.
Right, right.
And so that was Sasquatch saying, I'm taking it.
Yeah, and he did. Yeah. He did take it. He took off. Well, the other two guys, first of all, the other two guys did come up and they did see the Sasquatch. They did see it, but I think he was already turned and ready. He's booking it out of there.
They started running.
And they started running away from them, I think, and the Sasquatch.
They heard it too.
Right. The Sasquatch took it and the arrow and took off.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was a great story. And the way he described, he did a much better job than I did with this roar thing and how it vibrated his body, which was incredible. In fact, of all the stories I've heard, I've never heard any story talking about this tremendous ability to roar. Now, I have heard that they hear him from distances, long distances away, where they hear noises and howling and hooting and howling and carrying on. And it's very loud. At least it sounds like that. Or they're very close, one of the two.
Right.
But anyway, so that was that great story. And what was interesting about this is, remember I told you it was only like 20 miles from Eugene. Now that brings me to another point. You do not have to go hundreds of miles into the wilderness to have a UFO encounter. Have a Sasquatch. That's probably true too. But have a Sasquatch encounter.
Yeah, we invite them here to the house because we have fir trees, Douglas trees.
Douglas, we have tall pines.
Yeah, and so we invite them. They can come over if they want.
Yeah, and there's been sightings 3 or 4 miles from our house here of Sasquatch, but we live kind of in a semi-rural urban area, and
there's even been sightings of Mothman.
Yeah,
not far from us.
Yeah, Mothman. So there's a lot of different activity, but you don't have to go that far. You just got to kind of know where there's been sightings. They don't have to necessarily be in parks or be in forests. They seem to go everywhere. I mean, I can tell you stories about in Arizona where they would be out in the deserty looking areas, in cave areas or whatever. There were sightings with the Navajo Indians, but that's a whole nother story another day. Anyways, what else, Rainbow? Anything else?
We're good.
We're good to go.
Good for today.
Good to go for now. Okay, super. So
I guess I'm going to be the next video coming up.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'll be doing what Michael did last video, where he talked all about himself. So I'll be talking about myself.
Okay. Well, talk about yourself.
And that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. Talk about yourself. But anyways, so we just thought we would do that so you guys knew what we were about, kind of what brought us together, that kind of stuff. So that's the end of today. So thank you guys for listening in. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you like what you saw, and spread the word because we're just brand spanking new. So we're just trying to get out there and just do our thing. So
and you can check us out on Truth Seeker Forum is also our other website. And also you can get to us with questions at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. So all kinds of ways to communicate with us, and we will do our best to answer the questions and get back to you. So anyways, be safe. We love you. Bye.
Bye.